and this is lesson 1 of The Dark. Ooh. And so basically, I am a massive fan of these books called The Waterstone Chronicles. I've got one here and got one here. And so you might not know what The Waterstone Chronicles are. Well, allow my AI to explain.
The Waterstone Chronicles is a fantasy book series written by British author Joseph Delaney. The series follows the story of Thomas Ward, the seventh son of a seventh son, who is apprenticed to the local Spook. The first book in the series, The Spook's Apprentice, was published in 2004 and has since been followed by 19 sequels. The novels are set in Lancashire during the 18th and 19th century. They tell the story of Thomas Ward fighting against evil witches, boggarts, and other dark creatures which threaten both his own life and those around him. While each novel can be read as a standalone story, there is an overarching plot which spans all 20 books.
Also, I'm not joking when I said it was made by an AI. I asked it to write a story based on the Waterstone Chronicles, and it wrote an essay on it instead, which I kind of should have expected because it's called Essay Writer. But yeah, just leave me alone. Link in the description if you're interested in that kind of AI stuff. But as I was saying, I love these books, not just for the plot, but also for the lore. It's just so in depth, and kind of went, hey, I smell an opportunity. Let's trade John Gregory's secrets to random strangers. John Gregory is the master of the protagonist, and he's kind of the only way in which we know what we know about like all the lore. Partly thanks to this book written by Joseph Delaney, probably butchered that pronunciation, Joseph Delaney, called The Spook Bestiary. Don't know if you can see it properly. Which basically just ties everything together with just these lovely illustrations, like. I don't. You probably won't be able to see it. I'll put some up here. It's like, yeah. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, he's put all the lore together in this book that we need to know basically, which is really swell of him because it means I don't have to read every book again, writing down everything that we find out. So yeah, thanks Joe. Yeah, also if I do go too fast at any point in this video, remember you can pause and slow my speed down by hitting the little setting thing, then playback speed. I know I talk fast sometimes, I can't really control it. Where was I? Anyway, yeah, that's all cleared up. Let's begin our first lesson on The Dark. Ooh, I've got to stop doing that, it's not funny. Now, so this is basically just so vital, because whenever anyone asks what I'm reading, I kind of, struggle to respond. Like, I can say what it's called, but when they ask me what it's about, that's the hard part, because they don't know what a spook is, obviously, and just saying a guy who deals with the dark, okay, I promise that's the last one, that they have no idea what I'm going on about. And, things that go up in the night, which is how it's often described in the books, is kind of vague, and it just doesn't give off the same kind of vibe that is given in the book. The thing is, the dark is just kind of a term in which you get used to whilst reading the Waterstone Chronicles. And so I'm going to try and do my best to describe it to people who haven't read those books. But, it's kind of up in the air. Also, it'd be really useful if you could write what I'm about to say down in your own kind of words, just a few short sentences, or bullet points or whatever. So dark is essentially the root of evil, but sort of not. It basically, if something is evil, it is probably belonging to the dark. However, if it isn't evil, that does not mean it doesn't belong to the dark. So if you're not human, or an animal of this world, then you're probably from the dark. And if you're a human who uses magic, then you're of the dark, typically. Also, if you use magic, it's kind of like, Plato's ring analogy, where, you give a good person power, they have the same outcome as a bad person who gets power. And so often people who do learn magic become evil just by being corrupted. So yeah, something's also the dark if it's dead, and still around on Earth. It's known as the unquiet dead. So some incredibly low power, like a ghast, which doesn't necessarily have to be dead, but typically is. This is basically just kind of the essence of a memory or a thought left behind. It just kind of lingers around, and as long as you aren't afraid of it, it's completely harmless. The moment you become afraid of it, that's when it can start to interact with you. It might, if you get too scared, it might be able to kill you. But yeah, basically, and the higher end of the spectrum, there are ghosts, who are dead people trapped on Earth due to a traumatic life or death. Some very powerful ones might kill the living, but most of the time they're just lost and sad and might not even realise they're dead. But I digress. The point is, the dark is a very broad term, which you just kind of come to understand as we go through this. So today we're going to look at the basics of how to defend from the dark. So if you could write each of these down, please. So step 1 is something very clearly highlighted in the Spook Diary, which I will read for you here. It is important to prepare the mind. To conquer one's fear is difficult, but it's the first thing that must be done. The dark feeds upon human fear, which enables it to grow stronger. It helps to breathe slowly and deeply focus on the task at hand. A spook must be prepared to die if necessary. Once that's accepted, the fear often fades into insignificance. Our duty to the country is more important than our own lives. It actually says, I often misread that just because I'm an idiot. So yeah, it also talks about fasting briefly in step 2, or maybe 3. Step 2, and kind of just live off a block of cheese. I'm not sure if this is particularly important, however the Spook does stay true to it throughout the entire series, never ever swaying off this, and we do see people die because they didn't fast, supposedly. So I'm going to include it, but just kind of keep in mind it's not necessarily important. Step 2 is know what you're up against. So you can't go into house with bugger troubles expecting to fix it with the same equipment you'd bring to witches, You've got to know what equipment you need to bring with you. So know roughly what you're dealing with and pack accordingly to a broad spectrum. So don't just go, it's a hall knocker, I need to bring this stuff. Obviously this doesn't make sense, doesn't understand yet, but don't say that, because boggarts can change from hall knockers to stone chuckers. Again, this will become prevalent in a few lessons time when we go on to boggarts, because that's our first topic, but for now, don't worry about that. And step 3 is remember SIRS. SIRS. So silver, because that kind of hurts and it's a metal that the dark can't really battle against. It will usually be the thing that will defeat most powerful entities. Step 2 is R. I put this in the wrong way around. Sorry, I, which basically loses its power, bleeds away its power. Then R, rowan wood, which is kind of just unpleasant for things like witches, but it is very useful. Because they don't really like to touch it. They try and avoid it at all costs. And then salt burns it, so you can often defeat weaker things like boggarts with just salt and iron, although that won't work so much on powerful entities like witches. But again, I digress. That's the basics. You should remember silver, iron, rowan, and salt. Again, you should be writing this down. If you haven't, go back and... Okay, I've got to slow down. I've realised I'm talking far too fast. Yeah, that part's incredibly important. And step 4 is to be smart and logical and cunning. Don't go in there guns a-blazing. It is possible to negotiate with things like boggarts and ghasts, less so witches, but do remember, most of us aren't 7 sons of 7 sons, which is kind of important in the books to be a spook. And so, it doesn't work quite as well for us to be spooks. But the thing that's the seventh sons of 7 sons do have is that they are immune to a lot of things and they can see creatures in the dark, but they are immune to a thing called long sniffing, which allows witch to know where you are further away. So if you're 7th son, you can kind of sneak up. If you are not, you kind of want to run him, but you still have to be tactical. But yeah, we'll get into long sniffing and how that's important in another episode. But yeah, be smart, logical, and cunning. Know whether or not this thing is going to detect you. Just know everything you need to know. Okay, it's time for a project now. In the description, there should be a quiz, a link to a quiz. If you can complete that for me, pause me, and then you're already done. Yeah. Okay, hopefully you've done that now. If you haven't, please do. Pause me. But now, just before the bells goes, we're going to look at a passage which focuses on the origin of the dark, which I think is very important for us to understand. Now to find it. There we go. We can only speculate as to how the dark originated. Perhaps it was there from the moment the universe was created, a force to balance against the light, each striving from the first instant to gain upper hand. One other possibility is that it was a tiny seed of possibility that grew stronger as its roots developed and fed upon human wickedness. For there is no doubt in my mind that human involvement, especially the worship of and contact with servants of the dark for professional gain, is strengthening it now. Whatever the truth, the dark is still growing in power, and its denizens threatens to plunge the whole world into a long age of terror and bloodshed. So, yeah, the dark is kind of a mysterious thing, and I think we've covered the basics for this first lesson. So I guess I'll have to go over homework. Your homework is for you to write a paragraph on the dark, preferably about 100 words. It doesn't have to be too long or too complex, but you just need to cover the basics of what the dark is and how it works. I know the camera's probably been shaking a lot this episode. I'm going to try and fix that. Anyway, you may now back away, I guess. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks for tuning into the first episode. We will have more out soon. Bye.